we need to understand that failure is part of life.
Absolutely.
It is part
Absolutely.
of the process.
Absolutely.
And of course, you're welcome to another exciting episode of Man Cave. My name is Chomba, and of course, I'll be holding you down. Of course, I'm not alone in the studio. It's not a studio, I've been used to being in the studio, but we can call this the studio. And I've got incredible men as always on set. And today I have Lucky Cheta. Of course, for those of you that know him with other titles, don't kill me. But on this set, we usually just script off titles to just show that we are also mere men that serve an extraordinary God. And we also have Kunda. Some of you know him as Mr. Nightlight, Team praising God in the good and in the bad. Yeah. And we also have Jeff in the studio. Ooh, that sounds weird, but it's okay. It is okay. So just to formalize things, Apostle, thank you so much. Yes. Apostle Jeff, also thank you so much. So gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I think we've had some really exciting episodes.
Absolutely.
For the two of us, it's a normal thing.
It's a normal thing.
But for our guests, this day, it's gonna be an interesting one because I'm really looking forward to just hearing stories from each and every one of you. But maybe just to get back to what really is the meat for today. We were talking, I think, a few moments earlier that each and every one of us has gone through failure at one point or another. And I'm being reminded of people in scripture that went through failure. David went through failure, Paul went through failure, Peter went through failure. So many different people went through failure. But that does not say that people stayed in that state of failure. So what I want us to focus on is not the failure itself, but how people rise up after failure. So just to get comfortable also, I'll start with you, Apostle. Moments of failure in your life. Because most people, when they look at you, they see a fully built man who preaches on Sunday, prays for people every day, and they've never seen you fail in your life. So is there a moment in your life that you had really experienced failure and it broke you down to a level where you thought you were never going to get up?
Thank you very much for having me in this nice place, nice program. Yes, I have failed many times. Many people know me as a preacher, and others know me as an entrepreneur and as a husband as well. But I think I'm going to talk about the entrepreneurship journey. It's really been an up and down kind of arrangement. I remember in the year 2018, and I'll just touch a little bit of that one, and I'll come and add as we proceed. 2018 to 2020, my business crashed to a level where I was indebted to about 2.5 million kwacha. Owing people, my business was owing people about 2.5 million kwacha. No business, no contract, no nothing. And I had to find a way of getting out of that issue. Now, I'm saying I failed. My business failed. Everything around me crashed. Yeah. And of course, everyone gave up on me to say, okay, now in his business career, this guy is gone. There's nothing that's going to take place.
Yeah.
Okay, so every day you wake up, you have people banging at your door, calling you, and you don't know where to run to. Sometimes you feel like, okay, I feel maybe dying is the best, solution out of this, because I've reached a place where I really don't know what to do. Yeah, so yes, I failed. Yes, I failed.
And one thing I've actually noticed on this set, like all of you have had, in fact, you have sections of your life where you are dedicated to actually preach and teach.
Yeah.
And for men of God, that's not an easy thing, by the way. And I like the fact that he opened up another side of that box and say, on the entrepreneurial side of things, he failed. Now I wanna maybe tickle you guys a little bit. Like in terms of ministry, there's a story that you shared some time back, but we won't go there. I'm just trying to find out like an area of your life, especially in your ministry side of things, where you failed or you thought you had failed, and then you had to get back up.
Well, I think ministry is a journey, and you learn as you go. You learn as you go, and I can tell you that there are many times that I look at myself and say, I didn't do this well. All right, just in preaching in itself. All right, when I look at the way I started preaching, what I was preaching then is different from what I'm preaching now.
Yeah.
All right, so even as I'm growing and preaching, I would know that, you know, that preaching I was preaching was not a great preaching.
Yeah.
All right, so refocusing the cross and leaving the deep stuff, and just coming back to the actual word itself that Jesus himself spoke when he was on earth, and the things that he emphasized. I look back 10 years ago and say, I wish I could reach some of the people that I taught those things and tell them, you know what, I wasn't accurate in that teaching. All right, I wish you can listen to me now.
Yeah.
So I always see myself growing and seeing myself that I feel that I failed certain people at certain stages of life, depending on what I was teaching them then. Even just relations with members as well, you know, they'll have certain expectations of you. They want you to visit, some of them would want you to visit them when they're at home. And if you don't visit them, it's a great disappointment, which happens to be a failure on my end. And I've seen people leave the church, okay, because I didn't visit them. I've seen people just deassociate because maybe what I said did not sit well with them. So in the ministry, there's a lot of failures, and in the book that I'm writing, I always emphasized apology. I've always put the place of apologizing. I even call them, like, I'm very sorry. If there's a person that I can just remember and say, as I grow and I discover that I failed them at some point, you know, God has helped me to just be humble enough and say, you know what, I'm very sorry that when I actually heard that you had this problem, I wasn't there. Maybe I was busy with this, and I was so occupied with this, and I wasn't just there the way I was supposed to be there for you, or the way that you expected me to be there for you. So, I can say that there are actually, you know, a certain man of God says, actually more failures than victories. If we really look at things, we have more sad days than happy days.
The funny thing, I was reading something today, and it read, you know, successful people are willing to fail at so many different levels. You know, they try things so many times, they fail, but at some point they actually get to whatever it is that they are trying to get to. So we've looked at the pulpit, we've looked at the entrepreneurial side of things, and I wanna also not get to the pulpit side and the entrepreneurial side of things. I just want to get to you as a person. You are a radio personality, which means you talk to people a lot. You speak at events a lot. You know, and sometimes when people look at radio presenters, when they look at TV presenters, and they're saying, you know what, I think this person has got it all together. You know, so take us back to that moment in your life where you failed or you thought you had failed, and how did you handle that?
Wow, you know, the topic of failure is something that's very interesting. Like what has been said already, you know, at one point, all of us, we are bound to fail, you know, and not just attaining that success that we want to attain. And mostly as men, God has wired us in a way that we want to be successful at whatever we do. You know, and so sometimes if you don't handle failure very well, it will affect your faith. And so that's why I love we're talking about this, because I believe there might be somebody who's watching and maybe they failed and maybe it's really affected them and they're thinking maybe, you know, I'm just a failure, you know, I'm all alone. but also hearing these stories, it's encouraging knowing that at one point we all fell. And so for me, I'm going to touch on education and on my career as well. You know, I remember when I was in university, I was taking a course in microeconomics. All right, and so you are saving God, doing ministry for the Lord, and I was also in school. And then there's this thing you always feel like, if I'm doing something for the Lord, you feel like maybe you can never fail, you know? Yeah. So I was taking this course, microeconomics, and apparently when I wrote my exams for that course, I failed. And you know, with when it comes to school, there's nothing like you begin to gauge failure. It is failure because your results will just say fail.
There's nothing like
You almost
you needed one extra mark.
So I didn't clear in microeconomics, and with that, I remember when I saw my results and I didn't clear that particular course, I think it didn't do me very well. But then, you know, after talking to people and also just getting to, know about failure and how I could get out of that, I realized that, you know what, that was not the end. I still had another chance, you know, to repeat that course. And I had a chance, you know, to be able to pass that particular course. And so what I did is I had to repeat the course, you know, and I had learned from my failure. I had learned where I didn't do very well. I had learned that I didn't put much effort like I needed to. I didn't prepare for that exam like I needed to. I had fear for that particular course, and maybe that had contributed to me failing, you know. So I had to learn from that particular failure that I'd gone through. And so when I had to repeat that particular course, I did well and I passed, you know. And so with that, we see that, look, you will fail. But when you fail, you don't have to remain down. You have to rise up. And you have to learn, you know, from your failure and say, what did I not do well? Where do I need to work on next time? You know, like there's nothing wrong in simply repeating something. If it's a course, there's nothing wrong in repeating a course. You know, if it's a business, there's nothing wrong in starting all over again. And I know sometimes there's this thing of, we are scared of starting all over, right? And so sometimes I think like, I should start all over again, but it's okay. Sometimes you will fail even in your relationship, you will fail in your marriage. You can start all over. Like, you can always start all over again, you know, because you've learned, you know, from your past failures and the things that you didn't do very well. And so for me, I think that hit me, and I have so many failures, and I think like what Apostle was saying, it's like we have more failures than victories. And sometimes we need to understand also that there's nothing like you're too anointed such that you will not fail. You know what I mean? Or you're too special to a point where you'll not fail.
For me, I think that's where I think it's like, and I like what you said. Like men are, it's a manly thing to always succeed at something. You know, when you approach a lady and you're trying to, you know, put your egg in, and she says no. You know, it just
What is this?
it just doesn't feel. Because trust me, sometimes maybe you feel like if you go to a conference and you're about to preach and you hear like, you know what, there's somebody that went crazy and the Spirit of God just like that was and you're the next speaker. You know, and that hits you especially as men. And if something that I've actually picked out like from all of you is that, look, we are men. There are certain things that we've taken in the field, and there's that issue of now getting back up, and that's what I want maybe to get to. There's a scripture in Psalm 50. It talks about how God delivers us from all our, you know, our troubles, everything that troubles us, He delivers us. And coming back to also your story of how, like, I'm a Christian, so obviously you will make me remember. Like you will make me remember. But what happens at that point where like nothing is working at all? like you were sure that, you know, God said He would deliver me from all my troubles, but at this point, nothing is working. And we can all agree that as a man, if nothing is working, usually it messes up our thinking, the way we view certain things. So what happens at that particular point when nothing is working?
Well, I think for me, I've been there where nothing is actually working. Also, just looking at the entrepreneurial side of things, where I lost cars, I lost my business, I lost literally everything. And I tried for a whole year, like putting in all the monies again, and it just didn't work. You know, I got to a point where I had no car for almost a year, and it just seemed not to work. You know, and sometimes when we fail at something that we are so passionate about, that we like so much, we close ourselves from seeing other opportunities that we can actually succeed in. And so what I did, when nothing was almost working, what I wanted was to do this business that I saw profits in at some point. But when I moved back to Zambia, it couldn't kick off the way it did, you know, outside of the country, you know. And I still wanted to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I kept on not getting the results that I wanted. But then at that point, I had to say, you know what? 1 year later, let me change. Maybe let me try and look at it from the other perspective of things. All right. So sometimes we can just forcefully want to do the same thing over and over and over. It may not give you the right results that you want immediately. So when nothing is working really, try to have an open mind. Try to just have an open mind and just see other possibilities. Maybe it's finances that aren't working well. Maybe it's business that's not going well. Even relationships that aren't going well. You know, like, hey, maybe this girl.
And you told the girl, the Lord told me.
Yeah, and I tell you, you, especially when you say the Lord, and the man of God there's a man of God involved, and the people are involved. The relationship has been publicized, and people know, and you can see that this thing is not really working, and you're scared of the failure.
Yeah.
And to announce that, hey, as a man of God, the relationship has what? Has failed. So you keep trying and keep pushing. You get stuck there. And you get stuck there. But actually, you see that a breakup could actually could be what you need. And to bring in the right person or the next person into your life.
That one, ish. I think that's a big revelation, man of God.
At a point where nothing really seems to work. I think first of all, just writing on what the men of God have said is, and to everyone who is watching out there, we need to appreciate failure. I think that's, I'm writing a book, The Blessings of Failing. And it's
another thing in common. I should write a book.
You see, I think the most important thing about failure is it brings new revelations. Just speaking from what the man of God was saying, where you have to think. I think there are things that I've come to discover through my failures is that if you are not very careful about failure, it affects your mental health. And I've also come to think of it to say, look, I think 90%, though I may not be accurate on figures, maybe let me reduce for the sake of the people watching, let me reduce maybe to say 60% of depression is as a result of failure. When you fail to reach a level where you allow your mind to accept that this thing has failed. And I think one of the healing processes or one of the ways to move out of the failing situation is to accept that I have failed. Guys, I have failed. Look, this thing has failed. And as you talk about it, as you explain to maybe your trusted colleagues, say, guys, I think my marriage is failing. You know, you don't reach a level where you start saying, no, if you can't fail, no. If you have failed, no. You need to reach a level where you say, look, I have failed here. I have failed. What should I do? And when you reach that level, new revelation will start coming. Okay, why can't you engage this person? Why can't you connect to this person? And in that building relationships with a few minds, you begin to have ideas that you can apply. And sometimes where you go into a place of, just reasoning with yourselves. Where did like I'm talking about acceptability. I failed here. What didn't I do wrong? You begin to learn from your failures. You begin to check yourselves. Where did I make mistakes? And I feel coming back after failing has everything to do with accepting. Number two, realizing that it's not the end of life. Because out of accepting, there will be new ideas. Okay, I can't die. I think there's another way that I can make this thing happen. And you start building on those ideas, and you find that you discover another method of doing it better. And by the time you realize, you are up. When my business failed, okay, I'm more on the entrepreneurship aspect. On the ministry aspect, as the man of God has said, I really, maybe just the frustration where the church was being built up at the foundation, you're preaching and you feel like there's nothing that is really working, People are not growing, people are not maturing, but I had to run to God. I'm like, look, okay, God, am I doing the right thing? Am I preaching what is supposed to preach? And immediately the Lord told me to say, what you are teaching is what I gave you to teach, continue. It's like I had peace. I was like, okay. So, and over the years, I've been seeing the fruitfulness and being crazy. But I feel how to rise after failure has everything to do, number one, to accept you failed. Number two, you have to learn from the mistakes that you made and begin to network. So you cannot rise on your own. It's impossible. I talk about relationship. That relationship is everything. And a lot of people, when they fail, they go into isolation. They go into hiding. And you can never find solution when you are alone, So I always want to encourage people that are facing failures where they feel like, okay, nothing is working. Why don't you network? Why don't you ask for ideas? Why don't you ask the people that, because I've always said this, there is nothing that the man of God is going to do which nobody has done before. There is nothing that you're going to fail at which I have not failed before. Or maybe if not me, somebody else has failed. The question is, how did you come back? Okay, so I might be able to connect to you. My friend, I think the business of selling clothes is not working for me. What are the secrets that you are applying that I can apply? So I feel there's an issue of accepting and humbling yourself to be able to acknowledge, I can't move past this wall. What do I do? But there's another person who is over the wall. There's someone who is running. There's someone who is walking. I'm crawling. Why can't I go to the person who is walking and say, my friend, how are you managing to walk? And I feel that.
So would you say the problem is with us men refusing to acknowledge that we failed at some point, and also refusing to ask from other men? Do you think that could be the bigger issue?
Because I think in agreeing with what Apostle has said, failure to accept that you felt, that already, it's an hindrance for you to progress or to move on. Because then you can't see opportunities, you can't see solutions.
Everything is closed.
Yes, because you're in that place where you've not accepted. You've not accepted that this has happened. But also to build on acceptance. I think one thing that I've done for myself, I believe it's attitude. And there's a saying that attitude is everything. So your attitude also matters.
Correct.
So you need to get to a place, like for me, how I live my life, I always believe that my tomorrow is better than today.
Absolutely.
So if I fail today, I know that
tomorrow
my tomorrow
is
is
better. Absolutely.
And that's the attitude that I've developed. And so whenever I fail, I'm always thinking of my tomorrow is better than today. So I'm always looking for a better tomorrow. And I've always lived like that. So whenever I wake up, I'm looking for a better tomorrow. Today I might have things, but I know that my tomorrow is
better than the one I have.
And so attitude also matters, because in order for you to rise from your failure, you need to have this attitude where you know that, that you know what,
I can do it.
I can do it. this is not the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the end.
I can't die here.
Like, no. I'm not gonna remain here. You know, tomorrow I'm gonna do better.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow I'll be at a better place.
Yes.
You know, I'll succeed at what
Yes,
I've felt.
yes, yes, yes.
And so that attitude also matters, because when you've accepted, then you can get into a place now where you're not, okay, you know what, I think now this has happened. I'm not gonna run away from it.
Yeah.
I have failed in this area of my life,
Absolutely.
but I can improve tomorrow because my tomorrow is better than today.
Yeah.
And so for me, I feel like attitude really matters as well in order for you to rise, you know, from your failure. Because if you have a wrong attitude even about life
Yeah.
and just everything around you, you stay in that place.
Yeah.
Because sometimes even the things that we go through, or even the failures that we have, some of them we even attribute them to where we're coming from.
Yeah.
So if you like, just because in my family
Yeah.
people fail,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So even me, it's gonna be like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you have a right attitude, you differentiate yourself. Look, you're a child of God, huh? You know, you begin to look at scripture like, you know what, I'm blessed going in. You know what I mean? So I have failed here, but I know that I'm blessed going in.
Exactly.
The Bible says I'm the head and not the tail. So you know that, you know what, I have failed today, but I am the head. So I know that success is coming.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna break through at some point.
And I feel, just to add on the mentality, you know, I think having a positive mentality, the first thing I ask myself is, when you began the journey, where did you see yourself? That vision. Okay, yes, you've met a wall. You've met a wall that seems like it's unbreakable. But the question is, when you began the journey, where did you see yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. It might not be the only way to use. There might be another road. Okay. But this is not, just have a positive mentality. I think that the attitude is very, very important.
Yeah.
You must not give up. You know, I always say to the church, look, it's impossible to fail. And when I say it's impossible to fail, it's because your mindset remains positive.
Yeah.
In as much as I felt a roadblock, I've faced a roadblock here, I can cross it. Number two, if it has worked anywhere, it can work anywhere. What am I saying? If it has worked in Nigeria, it can work in Zambia. If it has worked in America, it can work in Zambia. So I always live my life to say, look, if it worked in 1964, it can also work now.
Yeah.
The only way is to think, okay, what methods can I use? If my method has failed, the man of God, what method did you use to reach where you are today?
Yeah.
Can I learn something from you? Okay, you failed before. Yes, Dangote did not wake up today and is a millionaire. No, there are certain things that he faced which he had to overcome. Today is where he is because he saw a dream, you know, before he reached there, and he kept on pushing. He kept on pushing.
Yeah.
You know, say a never taking no for an answer mentality is going to help us achieve.
Yeah, because even just looking at these beautiful lights that are making us look
Exactly.
handsome, you know, someone tried over a thousand, I don't know if it's 100 times or something. Thomas Edison, you know, in order to just
Get a bulb.
working and stuff like that. So, and for me also, I think what you've said, all of you, what you've said, connects with some kind of a purpose. If you know what your purpose is,
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, even if you fail 100 times, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. There's somebody that said people get frustrated when they do something and it doesn't work out because they lost their sight on purpose. Because you looked away
That's it.
from what exactly you were meant to be doing at that particular time. For me, I love the story of Peter. Peter is like one of my favorite, people to look at in the Bible. Because Peter was a mess. One point he's being praised that, oof, who's giving you that answer? There's no man that can reveal such a thing to you. The next moment he's being told, get away from me, get behind me, Satan, So for me, and which is literally why we strip off all these titles that we have on this set. It's also just to show that we
Personality.
are men, and trust me, like these days it's difficult to find, even men of God that admit that they had failed at some point. That's why our sets on MANCAVE are totally different. We acknowledge that we are men, that we need a God, and of course, at the end of the day, bringing it back to the fact that we don't sustain ourselves. So if we fail, we can still look up to guys and say, hey, you said I would succeed, so why am I failing today? Alright, so if you are watching us right now, we are live on Facebook. If you're on radio, go to our Facebook page, like the page, that's Radio Christian Voice, and we are live. Give us your questions, your comments, your contributions, whatever it is. If you've got questions are never for me. only for my guests. Questions are never for me, so drop in those questions and let's get talking. Now, we're almost winding down, gents. And I wish we could just go on.
Go on,
I think it's a really beautiful conversation. Now, man of God, you talked about, and I'm glad I brought in Peter because Peter is like a perfect example. Maybe I'm gonna also bring in David.
Yeah.
Because David was a mess. After being praised, goes up on the roof, looks at a woman, gets someone's woman, kills the husband, and and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, as a man of God, and just also going back to what you said, that you realized that you had made mistakes. You had maybe
Preach something else
on the pulpit, and then now you were thinking, what if I just get back to people and just tell them this is what I actually was supposed to say on this? So how do you correct something if it's been wronged on the pulpit?
Yeah.
Or how, maybe the first thing how do you get to forgive yourself when you know that, what, I was supposed to say this, but what I said was something else. So how do you now correct it with yourself first?
Well, your relationship with God, it begins from there. First of all, it's grace and it's humility to actually accept and know that you are wrong. And the first person to apologize to is to God, himself, and knowing that he's a forgiving Father. I think the strength to apologize and correct starts from knowing that you're accepted by God, you're loved by God, and you're human, and you made that error.
Yeah.
So if the mistake was made on the pulpit, it must be corrected on the pulpit.
Yeah.
Then there's no way around it. There's no way around it. And there's no shame in saying, my focus is back on the most vitals, the most important things. And I realized that I was going off track, and now here I am. And I apologize, and I'm sorry, and this and this and this. I think if you're able to do that to your wife or to your partner or to everybody, what about those people who depend on you for spiritual guidance? And then when you discover that, I was just channeling these people into greed and following money and drifting them away from the blood of Jesus and the cross and the things that are very, very, very key. Vital. All right. And those things, you don't play with those things, but you discover as you move on and as you go through the journey of ministry that Apostle Paul at the end of his journey of his life, you say that I may know him. You see, it's like John says that the young ones, I write unto you children. Okay, I write unto you young men. And I write unto you men, that you may know him. So you can see the three levels. The children, they know the love of the Father. Okay. The young men, they are victorious because they have overcome. And the older you get, the more you know. The most important thing for you is your relationship with God. That I may know him. And these other things, say I count all things as done. As done. They are nothing. Count all these things as done. So to really get to that point and just begin to be humble enough and say, this is where we are supposed to be. Because God gave you those people. And if you discover that maybe you were excited because something was trending and you also just jumped on it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You also just jumped on it because it's what is happening. And then you discover, hey, you should be thankful that you are able to discover actually. Instead of continuing with the trend. All right. So I think for me, humility is the best way. I've learned to make C tens and U tens, S tens, prodigal son mentality. You discover something is not just make a U-turn. Turn around.
And I like the fact that you've also brought in the issue of like relationship with God, which which is something that's very important. Now, you being a radio personality means you build a lot of relationships with people.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes you might not even know the people you communicate with, but they create a relationship on that level. You know, so and after, I'm pretty sure, like in moments when we messed up, and I remember also you talked about how your business lost money, like you were in debt, you know, with a lot of people. And I'm looking at the relationships that were destroyed in the process, because some people looked at you and they didn't see a man they liked anymore, you know. So now when it comes to relationships after failure, especially if we did something very bad, how do we now start building those relationships after failure?
Yeah. So I think, like, you know what the man of God has said here, Pastor Jeff, we need to get to a place where we can be humble, right? Where we can be humble, and we know that, look, we failed here, or we didn't put in much effort in order for this thing to work. Sometimes a relationship, we failed here. So we need to get to a place where we are humble enough to be able to say sorry and apologize. You know, we should get to that place where we can say, you know what, I think here I messed up.
Only God can judge me. We've heard those things before.
I know, right? Like only
When
God.
the pastor doesn't want to,
and
only God called me.
This is one thing we struggle with all the time. You know, getting to a place of humility, and where you can say, look, sorry.
Yes.
And this is not easy, and especially for people that are leaders.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a leader anywhere, you know, you find that you have people that are following you. And for me, being a radio personality, I have people that are following me, and they see me as a leader. And so as a leader, to get to a place where you can say, you know what, Abba Bena, I messed up, and I'm asking for forgiveness. Forgive me. That becomes a challenge. But in order for us to mend relationships and to bring back relationships and to make them even stronger, we need to get to a place where we can be humble. And we can say, you know what, I messed up here, and I'm acknowledging I messed up, and I'm asking for forgiveness. You know, and we can move on from there.
I think also we need to identify something here. The question is, who failed? Who failed? Is it them or it's you? You are the one who failed.
Yeah.
And like I said, once you accept that, okay, I have failed here, that on itself is gonna give you peace to be able to confront somebody. For example, you are owing somebody, and you know, okay, I have failed to pay here, but I'm not saying I'm not going to pay. I'll be able to approach the man of God to say, sir, listen, things are not working right. It must start from within. You know, the Bible says, I'll hear what he'll speak peace unto me. And when you reason yourself with God, he'll give you peace.
Yeah.
You know, but one of the things that we need to understand here, we must never lose focus. He talked about attitude. We must never lose focus of where we are going. It may take time, but it does not mean you're going to die where you are. Once you accept that this thing is really not working, okay, I injured somebody. Okay, but the first thing, have you forgiven yourself? Okay, because you cannot go into humility until you forgive yourself. So once you forgive yourself, God will give you peace to approach the man of God and say, sir, look, I erred. Look, let's face it, I erred. Okay, and that acceptance will give you the humility now to go and say, sir, it didn't work, and I just need you to forgive me. I think what I said the other day was out of contention. I just feel I need help. And sometimes the person you're apologizing to is going to tell you, say, yeah, no, I was praying for you, and I feel you can do this. You know, so relationships will always be mended when we have created peace within ourselves to approach, you know, our success, you know, desires in a different way.
Yeah, but one thing I'd love to mention as well, as we are talking about, you know, rising above failure, is this: we need to understand that failure is part of life.
Absolutely.
It is part of the process.
Absolutely.
That's why whenever you go anywhere, people are always looking for experience.
Yes.
Why do you think people are looking for experience? Because of failures.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you say this person has got this experience, let's say in this field,
This is how many times he has failed.
how many times they failed?
Yes. Yes.
So failure is part of life.
It will always be
It's
there.
it's part of the process of growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're going to show me a man who's mature, it is a man who has failed.
Yes.
Are you getting me?
Yes.
It's like a baby, right?
Yes.
Umwana ngalefo kwenda para ngaitamba kwenda. Kula bali pona pona.
Yes.
Apona.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Apona. Apona. But one day I mean aenda.
And everyone will clap.
Aenda.
I don't do it.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
So, as part of growth,
Yes.
We must fail.
we must fail. I like that.
We have all agreed that at some point failure is okay, right? And I think for actual growth to happen, failure definitely needs to happen. And I remember what Miles Monroe used to say: when you get a tree or a plant and you remove it from where it is now to maybe another place that's even
Location.
more fertile, it will die for the few minutes, few times that you remove it and then you place it in the ground. It also has to get used into the, to the new environment and all that kind of stuff. So failure needs to happen at that particular time. It dies and all that kind of stuff. So I think even as men, we definitely need to experience failure at some point for us to truly know what success is all about. Whether it's ministry, whether it's business, personal relationships with people, you need to know what failure is like for you to know when true success comes your way. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through.
Well, thank you.
Hey, like I said, I would want to just continue.
It's an amazing talk.
Yeah. So remember, we're back next week, same place, same time. I will have different guests with me. So do stick around to find out who those guests will be. My name is Jomba. I've had Apostle Cheta. I've had the man of God, Kunda. I've got Apostle Jeff always on set with me. So enjoy. But again, peace.